There is a battlefield that no one sees but everyone walks through daily. It is not marked by bullets or banners, but by thoughts, doubts, fears, and whispers. This battlefield is the mind, and it is here, more than anywhere else, that your life is decided. The Stoics understood this better than most. They knew that wars are not always fought with swords. Many are fought in silence, in the morning when you wake, in the night when you reflect, and in every moment in between, when the mind either rises with clarity or sinks into chaos. Winning the war in your mind does not mean silencing all thoughts. It means mastering them. It means disciplining your inner dialogue until it aligns with truth, courage, and virtue. The Stoics didn't retreat into books and theories. They lived on the front lines of life, enduring exile, betrayal, sickness, and tyranny. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while wrestling his own thoughts each morning. Epictetus was a slave, crippled by abuse, but became a teacher of resilience. Seneca counseled emperors while reminding himself daily of death and impermanence. For them, philosophy was armor, and mental discipline was a sword. To win the war in your mind is not to erase hardship. It is to rise above it. It is to bend chaos into order. It is to make your mind your ally, not your enemy. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Understanding the enemy, your thoughts. Before you win any war, you must first know the enemy. In the war of the mind, the enemy often looks like your own voice. The inner critic, the anxious whisper, the loop of regrets from yesterday or fears of tomorrow. The Stoics were not interested in eliminating thoughts. They were interested in confronting them. They believed thoughts are not commands. They are impressions, and impressions can be examined. When fear arises, the untrained mind flinches and runs. But the Stoic mind pauses. It questions, is this true? Is this useful? Is this within my control? That last question, control, is the dividing line between slavery and freedom in the Stoic world. What is within your control? Your thoughts, your responses, your values. Everything else, outcomes, opinions, past events, are external. Daily life offers a dozen opportunities to apply this. A harsh email arrives. Your mind says, they don't respect me. But the Stoic mind replies, what is within my power here? My response, you are not your thoughts. You are their judge, their sculptor, their commander. You are the architect of the mental kingdom you reside in, and not every thought deserves a seat at your table. Thoughts are visitors, not rulers. Some arrive with clarity, others with confusion. Some build, others destroy. You must choose which ones to host and which to exile. This power of discernment is where mental sovereignty begins, not in control over the world, but in control over your own inner courtroom. The Stoic does not passively accept the voice in their head. They question it, challenge it, and when necessary, silence it. They do not confuse emotion with truth or panic with prophecy. Like a seasoned general standing before an army, the Stoic surveys the incoming thoughts and commands. You stand down. You step forward. The battle is not in resisting the arrival of thoughts. It is in refusing to be ruled by unworthy ones. Even the most venomous thought loses its sting when examined with clarity. Imagine your mind as a fortress. Every thought is a traveler asking to enter. The Stoic places a guard at the gate, a philosopher warrior with a sharp eye and a sharper standard. They ask each thought, are you rooted in reason? Do you align with virtue? Are you here to serve or sabotage? Most thoughts fail this test. Most are noise dressed as necessity, fear disguised as fact. The more often you perform this interrogation, the stronger your discernment becomes. It is no different than training a muscle. The more you lift, the more you can bear. The more you challenge your thoughts, the more refined your inner compass becomes. Clarity is earned, The untrained mind accepts everything and questions nothing. It swims in an ocean of impulses, prey to every passing wave of emotion or suggestion. But the trained mind, the Stoic mind, knows that not all thoughts deserve attention. Some are illusions masquerading as truth. Some are the echoes of fear, wearing the costume of reason. Some deserve to be ignored completely. Others must be dismantled piece by piece, like a weapon disassembled by a careful hand. And only the rare few deserve to be believed, embraced, and acted upon, those that align with virtue, with reality, with your higher aim. This is not easy work. It requires stillness. It requires observation. It requires you to stop being at the mercy of your mental habits and start becoming the architect of your internal world. You are the judge. You are the general. You are the builder and the protector. You are the filter that determines what remains and what is removed. And when you do this consistently, when you return each day to this inner vigilance, you do not just think clearly, you begin to live clearly. Your actions align with your values. Your words become deliberate. Your choices stem from principle, not pressure. You begin to experience the world not through distortion, but through disciplined perception. You see others more clearly, not through jealousy, not through projection, but through compassion and detachment. You see events not as curses, but as challenges. You see pain not as punishment, but as a forge. And slowly, silently, the war within begins to tilt in your favor. This is the victory the Stoic seeks. Not a loud conquest over others, but a quiet triumph within the self. Not to dominate, but to discern. Not to impress, but to improve. This is the real battlefield, and this is where your greatest glory will be earned, in silence, in solitude, in strength. Begin each morning by observing your thoughts without judgment. List them on paper. Are they rooted in fear or clarity? Are they about things within your control or not? Practice this audit for 7 days. You will be shocked at how many of your thoughts are borrowed fears and automatic echoes. Learn to notice before you believe. Chapter 2. Training the Inner Voice. If thoughts are the battlefield, then the voice you listen to is the weapon you carry into every encounter. It is not just commentary, it becomes command, the very code that determines whether your internal army marches in strength or scatters in fear. If this inner voice is undisciplined, it bows to every emotion, flinches at every hardship, and becomes a mouthpiece for chaos. But if it is forged in reason, if it is built on reflection and virtue, then it becomes a compass in the storm. It calms mental tempests before they erupt. It redirects you toward truth when fear attempts to lead you astray. The Stoics treated their inner voice like a sacred responsibility. It wasn't something to be left to chance. It was something to be cultivated like a garden, sharpened like a sword. They trained their minds through journaling, rigorous self-inquiry, deliberate restraint, and daily repetition of principle. These were not abstract exercises. They were rituals of mental fortification. Every morning, they rehearsed how they would face adversity. Every evening, they audited how they had responded to the world. In this daily rhythm, the voice within them grew strong, stable, and aligned with something higher than ego, virtue. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is a monument to this process. It is not a declaration to others, it is a conversation with himself. It is one man, alone with his thoughts, reminding himself of what endures when power fades and fortune turns. "Don't waste what's left of your life," he wrote, "worrying about others' opinions or wandering through distractions." He wasn't giving advice, he was giving instruction to his own soul. He was sharpening the voice inside him so that when temptation whispered, he would not follow, so that when despair knocked, he would not open, so that when fear screamed, he could meet it with stillness. That is how you train the inner voice, not with external noise, but with internal reminders, not with reaction, but with reflection, not by trying to control the world, but by controlling how you speak to yourself about the world. The world around you will try to hijack that voice. It won't always come with force. It often comes subtly, dressed in persuasion and popularity. It will try to fill your mind with artificial metrics of worth, other people's definitions of success, beauty, meaning, and status. It will try to replace your compass with a billboard. Advertisements will whisper that you are incomplete without their product. Platforms will present 1,000 smiling faces, edited moments, and carefully crafted highlights, all designed to spark envy and quiet shame. Comparison becomes a drug, easy to consume, difficult to stop. Social media doesn't just show you lives, it shows you illusions of lives. Not the struggle behind the smile, not the failures behind the win. And when you view these illusions long enough, your own inner voice can begin to mimic them. It says, "You should be further along. You're falling behind. Everyone else has it figured out." And just like that, your thoughts are no longer your own. People, even those closest to you, will project their fears, their insecurities, their regrets, and their limits onto you, sometimes out of love, sometimes out of pain. But regardless of their intention, the result is the same. Your voice, if left unguarded, is overwritten. If you do not actively guide your inner voice, it will be guided for you. If you do not anchor it in principle, it will drift toward the noise. If you do not teach it how to speak with truth, the world will teach it to speak in fear. And the destination of that borrowed voice is always the same: confusion, anxiety, emotional dependence, and misalignment from your true self. But the Stoic resists this pull, not because they are indifferent to the world, but because they are loyal to their own inner law. The Stoic doesn't chase the loudest voice, they seek the clearest one. They return not to popular opinion, but to personal clarity. Each day, they peel away illusions like layers of fog to reveal the mountain beneath. Principle. They ask themselves with sharp, unwavering honesty, what do I stand for truly? What is genuinely within my control today? What matters and what must be let go? What illusions have I unconsciously adopted that must now be discarded? These questions are not passive, they are chisels. They shape the voice inside. They carve it into something unshakable. That voice becomes your personal shield, not against physical harm, but against something more insidious, the erosion of self through unconscious conformity. It becomes the shield that protects your identity, your values, your direction. Your inner voice is your most intimate companion. You live with it every hour, every moment. It narrates your actions, judges your decisions, and either builds you or breaks you. You hear it more than anyone else's. So make sure it speaks with wisdom, not noise. Make sure it builds the future you truly want, not one imposed by the expectations of others. Make sure it honors the person you're striving to become, not the person others want you to be. Make sure it leads you, not into panic, not into pettiness, not into vanity, but into peace, purpose, and principle. Create a short morning ritual to train your inner voice before the world has a chance to do it for you. Choose one Stoic quote that embodies clarity and one personal value that you aspire to embody today. Reflect on both for 5 minutes in silence. Speak them aloud. Write a grounding sentence that begins with, "Today, I choose to," and finish it with a virtue such as courage, patience, discipline, justice, or humility. Revisit this ritual daily. Let it be the compass that centers you. Over time, your mind will begin to echo your standards. It will remember who it serves. Not chaos, not culture, but you. Chapter 3. Respond, don't react. The mind reacts when it is ruled by impulse. It responds when it is trained by principle. This distinction lies at the very core of Stoic practice. The untrained mind lunges forward at every emotional trigger. It is like a wild horse pulled in every direction. The trained mind, however, resists the pull. It sees the impulse arise and responds not with submission, but with scrutiny. The Stoic does not avoid emotion, but they govern it. They allow emotion to appear without letting it take the reins. As Epictetus put it, you may not control all events, but you can control your attitude toward them. This is not just a comforting idea, it is the blueprint for self-mastery. Reacting is immediate, it is fast, it is rooted in emotion, often unexamined and frequently regretted. It's the sharp retort, the angry email, the slammed door. Responding, on the other hand, is thoughtful. It is patient. It is filtered through reason. It creates space between the flame and the burn. When insulted, a reactive mind seeks vengeance or validation. It wants to strike back, to prove something, to defend pride. But a Stoic mind examines the moment and asks, what exactly is harmed here, my ego or my essence? It asks, does this truly injure me, or does it reveal more about the other person than it does about me? Seneca called anger a brief insanity. He warned that no decision made in its grip could ever be virtuous, and he was right. Anger clouds the lens of reason. It pulls you out of alignment with your values and into a reactionary spiral where principle is eclipsed by ego. Life throws its arrows at you, unjust words, undeserved delays, betrayals you never expected, and often from those closest to you. These arrows are not always physical or direct. Sometimes they come in the form of subtle disrespect, passive aggression, or unspoken expectations. But no matter how they come, you don't win by trying to dodge every arrow. You win by learning how to absorb them with grace. You win by choosing how to carry them without letting them change who you are. You win by walking forward, arrow in shoulder, head held high, and mind unshaken. You win by being the one who does not mirror harm, but transforms it into clarity and calm. Reaction makes you a puppet, your strings yanked by every insult, every delay, every inconvenience. You become a mirror to the chaos of others instead of a guardian of your own order. You become easy to manipulate, easy to provoke, easy to control. Response makes you a master. It is the deliberate act of severing those strings and holding them in your own hands. And mastery begins with awareness. It begins the moment you notice the gap between stimulus and reaction. The moment between what happens and what you choose to make of it is where real power lives. If you can pause in that space, even for a single breath, you begin to reclaim your sovereignty. That pause is the wedge that creates freedom. To respond well, the mind must slow down. It must interrupt the automatic narrative that rises in the heat of the moment. It must insert distance between what happens and what it decides about what happens. This is the hallmark of the Stoic mind. It refuses to be rushed. It insists on space. In that space you remember your values. You remember your philosophy. In that pause, you remember your standard. And most importantly, you remember who you are trying to become. You ask yourself, am I acting with courage, or am I caving to fear? Am I upholding the discipline I claim to value, or am I being dragged by emotion? Do I want to inflame this moment, or transcend it? The pause is not passive. It is power in its purest form. This pause is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the gap where ego loosens and principle steps in. It is the quiet moment where your better nature reclaims control from your impulses. The world trains us to react, quickly, loudly, defensively. But Stoicism trains you to resist that urgency, to pause, to weigh, to choose. In a world of people addicted to reacting, the one who can respond with purpose is rare and powerful. They are not dragged by every emotional wave. They steer the ship, even in the storm. Practice the pause. Make it a sacred space. When you feel your pulse rise, your jaw tighten, your voice about to sharpen, count to 10. Not as a gimmick, but as a ritual. In those 10 seconds, breathe, reflect, ask, what would the best version of me do here? What would the Stoic do? Not to look virtuous, but to be virtuous. Picture yourself as the philosopher king, the philosopher queen, seated not on a throne of ego, but on a throne of reason. You are not here to win the argument. You are here to win your soul. Each evening, journal the moments where you reacted. Write them without judgment. Then rewrite them as they could have been, calm, firm, clear. Not to pretend, but to train. You're forging mental reflexes. Review these reflections weekly. Over time, the pause becomes instinct. Response becomes habit. And that habit becomes your character, the character of someone who has won the inner war. Chapter 4. Endurance is victory. Victory in the mind is not won in one day. It is earned in repetition, in persistence, in silent battles won when no one applauds. In those moments where quitting would be easier, but integrity whispers, keep going. The Stoics did not equate strength with comfort. They equated it with endurance. To endure is to remain grounded when the world shakes. To persist, not because it is easy, but because it is right. Marcus Aurelius wrote during plague, war, and betrayal. His kingdom was in turmoil, his health failing, and his inner circle full of shadows. And yet he reminded himself to rise each day and fulfill his role. He didn't escape to ease or hide behind his title. He confronted chaos with calm. The impediment to action, he said, advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This was not poetic metaphor. It was how he survived his own storms, not by avoiding resistance, but by using it as fuel. Mental endurance means continuing when the mood fades. It means acting from duty, not desire. It means doing the right thing even when your emotions plead otherwise. It means returning to your commitments even after motivation has left the room. It is resisting the temptation to abandon your post, your promise, your principles. It is the willingness to stand your ground, not just once, but repeatedly, when it's inconvenient, when it's uncomfortable, and when it's thankless. Endurance is not dramatic, it's quiet. It's the long march through monotony, through invisible failures, through moments of isolation, fatigue, and doubt, knowing that each step is a seed planted in the soil of discipline. The world tells you that rest is earned through achievement, through applause, through accumulating trophies and accolades. It tells you to grind until you make it, and only then can you breathe. But the Stoics rejected that false economy. They taught that rest is not reserved for those who arrive at a destination. It is found in the alignment between your actions and your values. Rest is not an external permission slip. It is an internal result. It's what you feel when your choices reflect your character. It is the quiet satisfaction that follows an honest day, a just decision, a steady step. Rest is not at the finish line. It is in the moment you act with integrity. When you do what is right, regardless of who sees it, regardless of the outcome, peace follows like a shadow. Not loudly, but faithfully. The war in the mind is often about whether you will give up on your principles when the pressure rises. Will you abandon your calm when insulted? Will you forsake your discipline when weary? Will you trade long-term growth for short-term relief? These are not just abstract questions. They are real crossroads you face every single day, often without realizing it. A delay in traffic, a cruel remark, a disappointment you didn't see coming. Each of these moments asks something of you. They ask, Will you stay true to your standard, or will you surrender it for temporary comfort? Every day presents these forks in the road, and the answer is not found in the conditions of the day, but in the constancy of your mind. Discipline is not a reaction, it's a decision repeated. Calm is not an accident, it's a skill you protect. The Stoic does not seek an easy life. They seek a resilient one. They seek a strong mind, a mind that does not collapse when things fall apart, but instead grows more focused, more honorable, more grounded. A mind that can endure adversity not with gritted teeth, but with quiet resolve. A mind that says, "This is difficult, but I do not bend." A mind that knows when to yield and when to stand firm. A mind that holds the line, not out of stubbornness, but out of principle. And strength, as the Stoics knew, is revealed not in the moments that attract applause, but in the ones that go unnoticed, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, but you still choose the harder path, in the silent victories, in the decision to persist again and again, with no audience, no reward, and no end in sight. True endurance is not just surviving hardship, it is choosing virtue within it. It is showing up to life with dignity, even when life does not return the favor. It is choosing the harder right over the easier wrong, not once, but as a lifestyle. It is rising again after failure, not just out of pride, but because your values compel you. It is the ability to live by a code, even when you are tired, tested, or torn. When your will is frayed and the world offers an easier path, endurance says, "I will stay the course." This is not glamorous. There are no trophies for invisible victories, but it is rare, and rare is powerful, because those who endure, truly endure with clarity and purpose, become the ones whose minds are unbreakable, whose spirits are untouchable, and whose lives, even in silence, echo with strength. They are not remembered for noise, but for substance. Not for how they started, but for how they stayed. Not for what they endured, but for who they remained through it all. Choose one discipline to practice daily for 30 days. It could be journaling, a cold shower, a morning walk without distractions, or a daily reading from meditations. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just needs to be consistent. Whatever you choose, make sure it is something that stretches your will and aligns with your higher values. Don't choose what looks impressive, choose what builds resilience. Track your consistency, not just with checkboxes, but with short daily reflections. Ask yourself, how did I feel before? How do I feel after? What inner resistance showed up, and how did I respond? This daily feedback becomes a mirror for your growth. Do it especially on the days you don't feel like it. Those are the days that count the most. The days when your mind protests, when the comfort of excuses is louder than the whisper of purpose. These are the proving grounds. Anyone can be disciplined when it's easy, when the conditions are perfect, when motivation is high. But real growth happens when you persist through resistance, when you uphold your commitment in the face of discomfort, fatigue, and distraction. That's where the seeds of mental endurance are truly planted, in the moments when comfort tempts, but you remain rooted in discipline. Repetition is your sharpening stone. Every time you follow through despite resistance, you reinforce the message, "I am in command." And over time, this command becomes silent strength. Remember, discipline is not about perfection, it's about showing up again and again despite imperfections. Even if you falter, return. Even if the session is short or imperfect, keep the promise alive. Let your commitment be stronger than your excuses. Let your standard lead, not your mood. Endurance is forged in these invisible efforts. It's in the quiet repetitions that the strong mind is built, not in perfect days, but in persistent ones that stack day after day until your character begins to shift at the core. This is where the transformation takes root, not in grand gestures, but in the ordinary consistency of someone who refuses to give up. In your choices, in your presence, in your daily devotion to becoming better than yesterday. That's where the Stoic is born, not in ease, but in effort. Chapter 5. Silence. The noise strengthens the signal. Victory in the mind requires clarity, but clarity is rare in a noisy world, a world addicted to attention, obsessed with speed, and allergic to silence. Distractions are no longer limited to your phone. They exist in the invisible grip of your habits, your fears, and the unexamined assumptions you've absorbed without question. They are not just digital, they're spiritual. Every time you compare yourself to someone else's curated success, you cloud your inner signal. Every time you chase approval, your identity blurs. Every time you sacrifice solitude for stimulation, you dull your perception. The Stoics knew what few understand today. The quieter the mind, the louder wisdom speaks. But you must make room for it. Epictetus taught that we must distinguish between what appears to us and what actually is, a foundational Stoic discipline. He warned of false impressions, the illusions that masquerade as truth and pull us toward illusion. Status, wealth, applause, these are not signs of a fulfilled life. They are shadows on the cave wall. Don't explain your philosophy, he said. Embody it. What does that mean in a modern context? It means, don't post about discipline, be disciplined. Don't boast about peace, live it. Don't crave being understood, understand yourself. That embodiment begins not with action alone, but with the deliberate severing of noise. Only in the absence of false signals can your true compass emerge. To silence the noise, you must retreat, not from life, but from illusion. Not from people, but from personas. The modern world sells urgency. It screams, hurry, react, catch up. But the Stoic walks slowly. They speak only when necessary. They do not multitask their soul. They give full presence to each moment. This slowness is not laziness. It is rebellion against frenzy. It is choosing deliberate intention over reactive impulse. The signal of wisdom doesn't roar. It hums beneath the surface, waiting for stillness to emerge. Go for a walk without headphones, not to consume, but to notice. The wind, the sky, your breath. These are signals too. Sit without a screen and allow the discomfort of stillness to teach you something. Begin to notice how loud the world really is, how often you are pulled, pinged, persuaded. And more importantly, notice how powerful your own mind can become when you stop feeding the chaos. In that silence, a new frequency appears, not born from trends, but from truth. This is where Stoic strength is built, not in public performance, but in private clarity. Designate 1 hour per day as a noise-free zone. No news, no phone, no music. In that hour, walk, read Stoic passages, or simply observe your surroundings. Let the silence stretch. In that space, journal your clearest thoughts. Over time, the signal of reason will strengthen, and your decisions will no longer come from panic, they will come from peace. Chapter 6. Discipline over mood. There will be days when your motivation disappears like morning mist, fading the moment it touches discomfort. Days when your will feels weak, your body tired, your mind foggy and unfocused. Days when everything within you whispers, just skip today. The temptation on those days will be to delay, to justify inaction, to wait until you feel ready again. The untrained person sees this lull as a reason to stop, believing effort only matters when it feels easy. The Stoic, however, recognizes it as the precise opportunity to begin. They know that the moments of lowest drive often hold the highest potential, because discipline is not a mood, it is a muscle. It is not a sensation, it is a structure. It's not dependent on feelings, it is forged in their absence. It is not something you wait for, It is something you construct with each intentional act, especially when it feels furthest from your grasp. The Stoics understood that the path to peace and progress is paved through consistency, not intensity. They knew that excellence is not about grand gestures or occasional brilliance, but about the slow, steady drip of disciplined action. It is the compound effect of thousands of small, deliberate efforts made without fanfare. Anyone can perform well when conditions are ideal, when the sky is clear, the heart is light, and inspiration runs high. But the Stoic aims to rise even when the internal weather is stormy, when the clouds of doubt gather and the winds of fatigue howl. They understand that greatness is not born from bursts of effort, but from repeated acts of quiet strength, practiced even when no one is watching. They see that true mastery isn't built in public. It's carved in silence, forged in obscurity, and polished in repetition. They are not dependent on a good mood to do great things. They act not from how they feel, but from what they believe. They serve not the emotion of the hour, but the value of the moment, and this makes them rare. When others yield to mood swings, the Stoic holds the line. When the world praises talent, they return to habit. They move not at the pace of comfort, but at the pace of principle. They return each day to their post, like a watchman loyal not to comfort, but to duty, like a craftsman refining his art long after the applause has faded. Their effort is not a performance, it is a way of life. Each repetition, though unseen, adds weight to their character. Each unnoticed act is a signal to their soul. I can be counted on. Discipline is not harshness, it is devotion. It is a sacred form of love. Love for the future self, for the mission, for the standard that gives your life shape and direction. It is the tender, powerful act of choosing structure because you revere your purpose. It is the silent pledge you make to yourself when no one is watching, the contract signed in solitude and honored in silence. It is saying no to the trivial so you can say yes to the eternal. It is aligning your behavior not with your impulses, but with your values. It is the inner architecture that holds you upright in times of chaos. Like a lighthouse, discipline stands steady in the storm, not to control the waves, but to stay lit in spite of them. And like any real discipline, it is forged in the small, invisible choices, rising with the alarm when you'd rather lie in bed, finishing what you start even when interest fades, showing up to the page, the gym, the task, the prayer, especially on the days when your energy feels absent and your clarity feels lost. These moments build the unseen scaffolding of your character. They are bricks laid in the foundation of a strong mind. They are proof that you are not your feelings, you are your actions. Each choice, no matter how small, becomes part of the structure that makes you unshakable. These are the deposits into the spiritual bank account that yield inner wealth. A Stoic does not ask, "Do I feel like it?" They ask, "Is it right?" And when the answer is yes, they act. Not later, not after another dose of motivation, not after conditions improve, but now, with what they have, from where they are. Because they understand a profound truth, that the smallest step, taken with integrity, is stronger than the greatest idea delayed by hesitation. Every act of disciplined effort becomes a vote for the person they are becoming. Every small act is a declaration of loyalty to their higher self. Every quiet moment of persistence, every gentle refusal to break, is another layer of inner armor. Every time they rise despite resistance, they are not just acting, they are transforming. They are shaping themselves into someone dependable, principled, and immovable. Slowly, steadily, unshakably, they are winning the war within, and doing so with a kind of quiet power the world may never see, but they themselves will never forget. It is not applause that confirms their strength. It is the unwavering truth that they showed up when it was hardest. that they stood firm when it would have been easier to retreat, that they earned their self-respect, one moment at a time. Make a list of your non-negotiables, the actions you must take each day to honor your values and ground yourself in what matters most. These aren't chores, they are commitments to your own clarity and strength. It could be 15 minutes of daily exercise to move your body with intention, 10 minutes of reading to nourish your mind, 15 minutes of journaling to untangle your thoughts, or a promise to yourself kept even when it's inconvenient. These non-negotiables should not be based on intensity, but on consistency. They are the pillars that hold your daily integrity in place. Review this list nightly, not to grade yourself with guilt, but to reconnect with your path. Ask, did I keep my word to myself today? Where did I hesitate? Where did I follow through? Let it be an honest inventory, not a punishment. Don't judge yourself. Measure yourself. Discipline isn't about shame. It's about alignment. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present, committed, and real with yourself. Even a small act, repeated faithfully, becomes a compass. Over time, these non-negotiables become more than tasks. They become anchors. When life feels uncertain, you return to them. When emotions threaten to sway you, they stabilize you. When your energy is low, they remind you that your strength isn't just physical, it's ethical. So show up for your future self today, not just in big decisions, but in the small rituals that reinforce who you are becoming. That is the Stoic way, to live each day as a sacred vow to your best self. Chapter 7. The Power of Perception. The mind is not only a battlefield, it is also a lens. Everything you experience is filtered through perception. Two people can face the same hardship, yet walk away with entirely different realities. One sees injustice, the other sees an opportunity to grow. One breaks, the other bends and becomes stronger. This difference isn't found in circumstances, it's found in perspective. The Stoics believed that the most powerful weapon in the war for your mind was perception, because how you see determines how you act. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. The Stoic understands that events are neutral. It is your interpretation that gives them weight. Perception is the first act of power. If you don't control that, everything else slips out of reach. You can't always choose your circumstances, but you can always choose the lens through which you view them. This does not mean lying to yourself or pretending everything is good. It means interpreting things with clarity, not distortion. When a door closes, you ask, what door did this open within me? When someone fails you, you ask, what virtue does this moment require? Patience, forgiveness, detachment. The Stoic uses perception to extract strength from setbacks and wisdom from pain. The mind will always offer interpretations, many of them laced with fear, shame, and judgment. The untrained mind believes the first story it tells. The Stoic mind interrogates that story. Is it true? Is it useful? Does it align with virtue? This discipline of reframing is not delusion, it is training. It is the difference between drowning in difficulty or rising through it. When something difficult happens, pause and write two interpretations, the emotional reaction and the Stoic lens. Compare them. Which one leads to action? Which one leads to victimhood? Do this daily. Over time, you'll find your perception bending toward wisdom, not weakness. You won't avoid difficulty, but you'll never be blinded by it again. Chapter 8. The Art of Letting Go. The Stoics taught that the root of much suffering is attachment, not to people, but to the illusion of control. We suffer not because things happen, but because we expect them not to. We resist what is, and in doing so, we generate our own torment. Letting go, then, is not an act of weakness. It is a courageous declaration. I will not be ruled by what is beyond me. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." That distinction is the Stoic compass. It points us towards serenity. It reminds us to put our energy where it matters, our thoughts, our actions, our character, and to release what we cannot command, the opinions of others, the outcome of plans, the passing of time. Letting go does not mean indifference. It means focus. It means withdrawing your energy from what you cannot shape and investing it fully in what you can. It means saying, "I will give my best, but I will not be defined by the result." To let go is to stop clinging to what was never yours to keep. Control over other people, over fortune, over the uncontrollable waves of life. The Stoic lets go, not out of apathy, but out of wisdom. They do not carry what they were never meant to bear. They grieve losses, but do not drown in them. They feel pain, but do not let it turn them bitter. They release outcomes not because they don't care, but because they care deeply about what is theirs to shape, their virtue, their integrity, their inner peace. Each night, write down what you tried to control that was outside your power. Then write what you could have controlled instead. This will train your mind to let go of illusions and return to the seat of your power. Make this a daily ritual, and over time, peace will replace resistance. Chapter 9. Stillness is strength. In a world addicted to noise, stillness has become a form of rebellion. The average mind is overstimulated, filled with alerts, opinions, judgments, and endless distractions. The Stoic mind, by contrast, seeks silence, not as escape, but as power. Stillness is not idleness. It is clarity in motion. It is the ability to remain unmoved when the world demands you react. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire in chaos, yet he wrote calmly about justice, patience, and inner discipline. That's the paradox. The man with the most external power sought the deepest internal stillness. Because the greater the responsibility, the more essential it is to remain grounded. Stillness creates space to think, to reflect, to choose deliberately rather than impulsively. Without it, you are a slave to every trigger. With it, you are sovereign. The Stoics cultivated stillness by detaching from urgency. They practiced presence in the moment. They slowed down the racing mind. They reflected before they acted. They found power not in speed, but in intention. True strength, they taught, is not loud. It's composed. It doesn't panic. It prepares. It doesn't chase applause. It listens for truth. Stillness is the state from which wisdom grows. When you are still, you can see clearly. You can hear your own conscience. You can decide from virtue instead of ego. And perhaps most importantly, stillness restores you. It reconnects you to the part of you that is not reactive, but rooted. Carve out 10 minutes a day for complete stillness. No phone, no noise, just breath and awareness. Let thoughts rise and fall without judgment. This daily return to inner silence is not a retreat. It is training. It is where the mind remembers who leads and what matters. Chapter 10. Mastery through repetition. Repetition is the forge where excellence is made. It is the silent sculptor of character, the invisible hand-shaping habits, responses, and identity. The Stoics didn't believe in sudden transformations. They believed in deliberate practice, over and over, day by day, until right thinking became instinct, until wise action became automatic. There is no magic switch, no instant evolution. You don't master the mind through occasional brilliance. You master it through patient repetition, through the daily labor of showing up, even when nothing seems to change. Seneca wrote, "We become what we repeatedly do." And repetition is not just for the body, it is the secret training ground of the soul. It is how we teach ourselves who we are and who we are becoming. Each time you choose to return to your values rather than your impulses, each time you resist distraction and come back to presence, each time you journal your thoughts, reflect on your day, or pause instead of react, you are not simply performing an action, you are training a trait. You're casting a vote for the person you want to be. You're laying down the path for your future self to walk more easily. You're building a person brick by brick from the inside out. And those bricks, though they may appear small, are unshakable when laid with intention, patience, and care. There is nothing glamorous about repetition. It is boring. It is quiet. It is often thankless. It lacks novelty and feeds no ego. It defies our hunger for dramatic change, our addiction to immediacy. But it is this very nature, its humility and invisibility, that gives it unmatched power. The true masters are not forged by sporadic flashes of inspiration, but by the slow, invisible hand of relentless practice. It is the work done in silence that echoes the loudest over time. The Stoic doesn't aim to be entertained by the process. They aim to be refined by it. They understand that growth is rarely obvious in the moment, but undeniable in hindsight. They understand that progress often whispers before it roars, and it's often only in reflection that we see how far we've come. When you wake and read a Stoic passage, you might not feel any different. You might feel numb, distracted, impatient. But do it for 30 days, and your mind will begin to shift, subtly at first, then powerfully. You begin to think differently, question differently, and live differently. When you reflect each evening, you might not find wisdom immediately, but keep showing up for a year, and you'll find that your instincts have changed. You'll find yourself reacting with grace where you once reacted with fire, pausing with clarity where you once stumbled with confusion. Repetition is how the mind unlearns weakness and relearns strength. It is how the automatic becomes intentional. It is how virtue ceases to be an aspiration and becomes your identity, woven into the fabric of your being. The truth is, repetition is how you win not just once, but always. It is the unseen thread weaving your daily actions into the fabric of your future character. You don't have to conquer life in a single day. You just have to rise again, commit again, and refine again. You don't need grand victories to become great. You need daily follow-through. In each moment where you choose your principles over your impulses, you're winning battles that no one sees, but that your soul never forgets. These victories accumulate silently until they erupt into undeniable transformation. In a world that glorifies speed, the Stoic honors steady direction, because direction, not velocity, determines destination. In a world that idolizes instant results and viral breakthroughs, the Stoic knows that anything lasting must be built slowly, humbly, and repeatedly. The Stoic is not threatened by slow progress. They are threatened only by inconsistency. Repetition may not dazzle, but it shapes. It may not entertain, but it empowers. In a world chasing novelty, the Stoic repeats the eternal, the virtues that never go out of style: courage, discipline, justice, wisdom. They return to the basics again and again, not because they are slow, but because they are strong. They are the few who understand that repetition is the rehearsal of greatness, that each morning routine, each quiet choice, each moment of restraint, each act of integrity is not just a task, it's a sharpening, a refining, a rising. That is mastery, not in the rare act of excellence, but in the daily decision to rise, repeat, and become undeniable in your quiet, disciplined power. That is how the Stoic wins, not with noise, but with consistency, not in flashes, but in foundations, not once, but always. Choose one practice, a Stoic meditation, a phrase, or a daily challenge, and commit to repeating it for 30 days. Make it simple but meaningful, something you can return to daily without resistance but with purpose. Perhaps it's reciting a core Stoic tenet each morning, such as Amor Fati or Memento Mori. Perhaps it's writing down one thing each day that you cannot control and one thing you can. Perhaps it's committing to one act of temperance or discipline every evening, no matter how small. Let this practice become a thread that weaves consistency into your day. Track your effort, not just for compliance, but for awareness. Let it show you your patterns, your obstacles, your breakthroughs. Use the repetition to tune your awareness, like sharpening a blade not once, but repeatedly, until it cuts through confusion with ease. Reflect on your progress. Ask what is being revealed about your mind, your priorities, your habits. Let the process become a mirror. See how it strengthens your resolve on hard days and amplifies your humility on good ones. Repetition is not about routine, it's about becoming. It is not about filling a checkbox, but about forging identity. Let every cycle, every return to your chosen practice reinforce the kind of person you're here to become, not once, but daily, until it becomes effortless. Until the values you admire are no longer ideals you chase, but habits you embody. This is the path of the Stoic, not dramatic but deliberate, not loud but lasting.